The Lord is my shepherd. I have all I need. She makes me lie down in green meadows, beside the still waters she will lead. She restores my soul. She rights my wrongs. She leads me in a path of good things, and fills my heart with songs. Even though I walk through a dark and dreary land, there is nothing that can shake me. She has said she won't forsake me. I'm in her hand. She sets a table before me in the presence of my foes. She anoints my head with oil, and my cup overflows. Surely, surely goodness and kindness will follow me all the days of my life, and I will live in a house forever, forever and ever. Glory be to our Mother and Daughter, and to the Holy of Holies, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen.
Good morning and welcome to this Sunday's online worship service of the White Bear Lake United Methodist Church. My name is Pastor John McBride, and together with Pastor Bill Eves, we thank you for joining us this morning. It's Memorial Day weekend, a time when we give tribute to all of those who have sacrificed so much for our nation. For all of the veterans or active service members who might be watching this morning, thank you for your service. If you are watching this service on Facebook, we would encourage you to take a moment right now to share this page. That way your friends will have an opportunity to join us as well. It is the mission of our church to provide nourishment for the hungers of life. It is our hope and prayer that this service will nourish your soul so you can participate in nourishing the hungers of the world. Let's be in worship together.
A psalm of lament and praise in a time of coronavirus. How shall we praise you, Lord our God? When we are locked down, how shall we praise you? When the doors to your house are barred and your people cannot assemble, when those desperately in need of money and work cannot even wait in the marketplace, when we have to circle round people in the street and to queue for shops maintaining safe distance, when we can only communicate by hearing on the phone or seeing on the screen or digitally messaging or even just waving through a window, when we cannot meet our parents and children, grandparents and grandchildren, or other family members and friends, when we cannot touch them in their flesh and blood to know they are really alive, how shall we praise you? How, like Thomas, shall we not see, yet believe that your Son is raised among us? How shall we praise you? How can I praise you, Lord? Are you plaguing us with this virus to punish us because we have all done wrong, or thought wrongly, or felt wrongly, or just been wrong? If so, why do only some die, and those apparently the ones who are the least worst or most caring amongst us? Or are you trying to teach us a lesson? If so, why is it so hard to learn? And how are we to find the answer when we do not even know the question? Or are you still the same loving God, coming to us in our sufferings and opening up the way to new life in Jesus? Lord, I will try to praise you. Through gritted teeth I will try to praise you. I will try to remember that you have created all things, and this virus is part of your creation. I will try not to hate it, but seek to mitigate its harm. I will try to keep myself and others safe. I will work to pray for them and seek to help in whatever way I can. Lord, when I cannot pray or worship, help me be aware of all your people and your saints and angels hovering around me, lifting me up. When I feel alone, let me feel you near me, even if only for a moment that enables me to go on. Let me hear you say, "Peace be with you." Lord, I will praise you. Let all the peoples praise you.
Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name.
Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven.
Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors.
And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Then Jesus went home, and the crowd came together again, so that they could not even eat. When his family heard it, they went out to restrain him, for people were saying, "He has gone out of his mind." And the scribes who came down from Jerusalem said, "He has Beelzebul, and by the ruler of the demons he casts out demons." And he called them to him and spoke to them in parables. "How can Satan cast out Satan? If a kingdom is divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And if a house is divided against itself, that house will not be able to stand. And if Satan has risen up against himself and is divided, he cannot stand, but his end has come. But no one can enter a strong man's house and plunder his property without first tying up the strong man. Then indeed the house can be plundered."
Some people are crazy. We say that sometimes, don't we? Maybe it's when we hear of a person who takes a tremendous risk that we can't imagine we would ever take. Maybe it's bungee jumping off a bridge, or handing over your retirement savings to a grandchild who wants to start a new business without knowing whether it will be successful. Or maybe it's when someone makes an incredible sacrifice that we can't ever imagine ourselves making, as when someone gives their life in service to their country. Or sometimes we say it when we see someone take on an act of pure foolishness. If we see a sports fan who goes the night before the big game and spends the night outside in front of the stadium when it's 20 degrees below zero. Risk, sacrifice, foolishness, and sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. And what do we mean exactly when we say someone is crazy? Jesus' own family thought he was crazy. He had been traveling around Galilee, teaching and preaching and healing. Crowds had begun to follow him, and he had come back home to rest. And when he did, the crowds continued to follow, so much so that Jesus didn't even have room in his own home. That's when his family came around, because they thought he had gone crazy. Different translations of the Bible put that in different ways. In the old King James Version, it said, "He's beside himself." Another version says, "He's lost his mind." And a modern translation lays it out. He was crazy, and his family had gone to get him under control. Well, I hope you'll let me get away with saying it this way, but Jesus was crazy. Jesus is crazy. And Jesus believed that the world needs more crazy people. Needs more crazy people who are crazy in the way that he was crazy. I mean, look at what Jesus did. It's no wonder his family had concerns about him. He told people to love your enemies. Don't try to exact revenge against them. He told people that the greatest among you shall be your servant. Crazy. He also said, "Blessed are the poor. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are those who lack righteousness and justice and hunger for them. Blessed are those who suffer." Crazy. Jesus also said when he was being put to death, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Crazy. Who would do these things? But the world needs more crazy people. People who are crazy like Jesus. People who love in the way that Jesus loved. People who give in the way that Jesus gave. People who could forgive in the way that Jesus forgave. People who would do justice and love mercy and walk humbly with God like Jesus. People who believed that the world could be changed from the nightmare that it has become for so many people into something more like the dream that God dreams for this world and for all of us. Anyone who follows Jesus is called to craziness, the special kind of craziness that Jesus lived out in his life. One good example of that is Mary Magdalene. We don't know a lot about her life. The gospel tells us that Jesus had delivered her from 7 demons. Who knows what that means exactly, but apparently there were a number of things that were going wrong in her life. But Jesus helped her to find the right way. But when it came to the crucifixion of Jesus, look at what happened. A crucifixion was a public putting to death of someone who was considered to be a danger, an enemy to the state, to the status quo, to the powerful. It was always done in a very public place so that people who saw it would understand that if they did the same thing that the person being executed had done, they too could end up with a similar fate. So when Jesus was crucified, look around at who was there with him. Who was there in that last moment of Jesus' suffering? Let's do a roll call of the disciples. Simon Peter, the leader of the disciples, absent. Matthew, the reformed tax collector, absent. James and John, absent. Andrew, absent. Thomas, absent. Judas, definitely absent. But Mary Magdalene, present and accounted for. She was there when Jesus died. When we sing that old song, "Were you there when they crucified my Lord?" Mary was one who could answer, "Yes, I was there." Crazy, isn't it? The history of the Christian faith is really a story of crazy Christians. Ordinary people don't stand out in history. The crazy ones in Christian history stand out. Now, sure, they were mortal, fallible human beings, but they marched to a different drummer. In fact, the history of Christianity could be called the Chronicles of Crazy Christians. And there are so many of them who continue today to be a source of inspiration and faith, an example to us. One of those is Harriet Beecher Stowe. Harriet Beecher Stowe was born in 1811. She was born into a nice upper middle class family. And a person in her position would have been expected to have lived a nice life, to marry a nice man and have nice children. She might also be expected to undertake some charitable activities in her lifetime and use her resources for good. But Harriet believed there was more to life, more to being a Christian than that. She was a person who believed that following Jesus meant working to transform the world. So she put her writing talents to work, and she wrote that famous book, Uncle Tom's Cabin. In Uncle Tom's Cabin, she told the story of a real slave family and of the indignity and humiliation of being slaves. She told of how terrible their lives were, how terribly they were treated by their owners. She gave a realistic, human picture of what slavery was like and how it destroyed people, not only slaves, but others as well. In that time, her story was widely read. It did what videos on YouTube do today. It went viral, at least as viral as something could go in the 1800s. And it changed the way people were thinking. So much so that when President Abraham Lincoln was introduced to Harriet Beecher Stowe, he looked down at this small woman and he said, "So, this is the little lady who has started this great war." Harriet Beecher Stowe was a person who believed that following Jesus meant working to change this world from the nightmare that it is sometimes into the dream that God dreams for all of us. When Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple, died in 2011, they began showing an old commercial again that they had shown back in the early 90s. In this commercial, there were pictures of people flashed on the screen. There was Bob Dylan and Amelia Earhart and Frank Lloyd Wright and Martin Luther King, Pablo Picasso, people who invent and inspire and create and sacrifice. And along with the pictures, these words were spoken: "Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels." Because people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. We need crazy people in this world. We need crazy Christians in this church. Because while respectable institutional Christianity might have served us well in some generations, those days are gone. We need people who are crazy. Crazy like Jesus. People who are able to love, to forgive, to give, to do justice, to love mercy, to walk humbly in the way Jesus did. People who are crazy enough to believe that children don't have to go to bed hungry at night. People who are crazy enough to believe that history does not have to be the story of one war after another. Crazy enough to believe that every human being has been created in the image of God and is worthy to be treated as such. To be crazy may involve risk, may involve sacrifice, it may involve foolishness. That's what it was for Jesus. That's what it was like for every Christian who has been a crazy follower of Jesus since then. Today, the world needs more crazy people. Crazy like Jesus. I'm on the phone today with Don and Verna Sensala. They are at their home at the Arbors at White Bear Lake. And let's check in with them. Hello, Don and Verna.
Hello. Good morning. Good morning, Bill.
How are you doing?
Well, considering the pandemic and everything that's happening, we're very fortunate to be at the Arbors, which works very hard to keep us safe. They do have a lockdown program. They cancel a lot of the activities, and they ask us to wear masks, which we try to do. And we're very fortunate. One of the residents made masks for everybody. So we're very happy to be living where we are.
That's good.
We're not allowed. We're only allowed to have, like our children can drop off groceries, or we also have a grocery service that comes here. He doesn't have everything, but he has enough of what we need. And it works out well. No one is allowed to enter the building except for like nurses or doctors or someone like that. But we have a wonderful management, and they do well for us.
That's good. So you feel safe there. That's good.
Yes.
Very good. Well, we have Memorial Day this weekend. We just had Armed Forces Day. And Don, I know you're an Army veteran of the Korean War. What are some of your thoughts as we think about Memorial Day?
Well, Memorial Day is very personal. I lost a lot of friends in combat, and I get very emotional about this, and I'm glad that the church takes a couple seconds to recognize Memorial Day and all that the veterans have done to protect our country. And it's just one of those things that really, really touched me deeply. And I get carried away sometimes, I know, but whenever they play taps, I cry. So, yeah, Memorial Day is very important to me.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. And we do remember all those who have served in our country and have died. Do you have, both of you, do you have any greetings you'd like to share with our congregation this morning?
Well, one thing, I really miss the congeniality of the church from the very beginning, when the greeter has a smile and welcomes you into the messages that the minister say. And I really enjoyed second service with a great musician, John, creating an activity for us with a lot of pep and vinegar. And I do miss that, miss the whole congeniality of church. And as you well know, I express my views off and on through the email because I'm an internet junkie and read every newspaper that's available. So, yes, I do miss the congeniality of the church, the interaction. And it's kind of interesting to watch how society reacts to coronavirus. It's an interesting study. And I'll let Verna talk because once you get me started on this, I can talk forever.
You well know that, Bill, through all the emails, I'm sure. I also miss seeing everyone and their smiley faces and people that we haven't seen for a long time. And I know we won't see probably for a long time. We have to be realistic about this thing. It's not going to go away overnight. So we have to still learn to find, I've learned to find a stove again, and maybe I'm not such a bad cook, but that's one of the things I spend a lot of time doing now.
Good. That's great. Well, thanks so much to both of you.
Enjoy the Zoom that we have with our family every week, and that has brought our family closer together by the simple fact that each week we catch up on the news from everybody, and everybody gets to exchange ideas and look at the faces, and so that part of has really been important to us also.
That's great. Well, thank you to both of you for talking to us today, and stay well, and we wish you the best.
And everyone stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us for worship today. Each night at 7 o'clock, I have a brief evening prayer time on our church Facebook page. I invite you to join me. And now, may God bless your eyes with clear vision. May God strengthen your soul with courage. May God fill your heart with love, so that you may go forth to do the healing work of love today and every day. Amen.